Hello. Welcome to another episode of Ball Over Passion. I'm your boy George V _AFC, and we've got Curran here. Mate, how you doing? You good?
Yeah, I mean, all good. I went to the game last night. I'm telling you, I said it on Twitter earlier, it was probably one of the most frustrating 3-0 victories I think I've seen in a while. There were a lot of things that I did not like, and I'm sure we'll get into them, but a lot of good stuff as well. Obviously, 3-0, you can't exactly be like, oh, what the hell, what, can't really just say everything was crap, but there was some
I'm
definitely
interested to hear
things
your opinion. I'm not gonna lie, bro. Like I came out of that game totally fine. I think you obviously went to the game, so
yeah.
there must have been a lot of half chances that you felt like you saw that really didn't come off. Because for me, when I had a look at the game, I was calm. I was in cruise control. I felt like I understood the assignment. I was really happy that we had Bodø. We'll get into the tactics, and I think Knutsen is an excellent manager, and he really prepared us well. Ironically, for Liverpool, like if you were going to have like a practice rerun in terms of what you're going to be facing against Liverpool, and we'll get into the preview tomorrow for everybody that's with us right now. I think it was probably the best team. Forgetting quality for a second, but just how they employed their tactics to frustrate us or attempt to frustrate us. And I always knew that between, what was it, 8 changes or 9 changes in total?
8 changes.
It was 8 changes. Like, you're always going to have a degree of not continuity. You're always going to have a degree where I think Mikel's kind of review of the game was spot on in terms of, look, we attacked the box really, really well. There were some good moments, but fundamentally we just didn't string 10 to 15 passes together between the thirds. We didn't see that same cohesion that we see with the first team necessarily in patches. I would argue that it was a game of 2 halves, though, to be fair. Like, I really did feel that we were in quite good control, and there was a lot of really nice moments in the first half. And then I think towards the second half, we really let Bodø take a hold on the game a little bit more. And I think that they themselves got over their little fear, because I do think that they themselves as a team kind of collectively gave us a lot of space that they didn't in the second half. So there was definitely a little change that happened there, and we'll have a talk about it. But like, what was your initial impressions kind of the game? Because I'm definitely looking and seeing, I came out of the game quite happy, and I know that you were quite angry. So what was it, that kind of initial thoughts? And we'll get into specifics later, but what made you so frustrated?
I think first half was the lack of technical security from our back line to really switch play continuously again and again. There was so much space, especially on the left-hand side, and I've got something to show, which I'm literally about to upload now. The amount of times that we had Martinelli literally almost like a pitch by himself, and especially you could see it from the where I was sitting. Literally, Martinelli would have a pitch by himself, and our back line just could not find him. Again and again, he'd be in space, and we'd just be showing switch, and there was switch on literally every play, and you could quite easily free him. And I think if we have Ramsdale on that pitch, you see that out ball again and again, and we rinsed them that first half 3 or 4 at least. But I just felt like there was a lot of opportunities missed. I felt that there was technical security off, especially in that back line, as I mentioned. I think Sambi had an up and down game. I think he was good in parts. I think he was a bit poor in parts, especially the second half. Eddie had a good game, I think, technically off on the ball, very good in his duels and very good in his pressing and his work off the ball. But there was a lot of things like I don't think it was Granite's best game either. I think he had a solid performance, but nothing outstanding. But for me, I think it was the technical security in that back line to find.
I mean, unsurprisingly, though, I feel as though that the people that played had an impactful game. Like, I mean, I think even Martinelli, despite probably being in space, but even when he did receive the ball, he wasn't technically secure. Like, we know he can be, and even when he did get the ball, I still felt as though he overcomplicated some things. Like, I don't think he was up to his usual self, but I mean, you kind of take that when you're one of the few players that are going to be repeating 90 minutes. But I think in general, when I had a look at the game, like, I thought it was just a very professional performance by, the B team. It was great to get the first clean sheet at home. I don't know if many people know that, but all throughout this season, we've been playing great, but we haven't got a clean sheet at home. I don't think that's insignificant. And I think, there were times that we definitely tested that ability, but, we managed to get the first clean sheet at home, which is a big thing for me going into the next fixture, by the way. I thought that the B team did really well in several moments in the first half to really show that kind of rotation that we've seen with the team. One of the biggest compliments, I think there's a clip going on which happened in the second half that was, just prior to our goal, was really that, or not our goal, but that Eddie Nketiah one-on-one chance where I know you were yelling at him, Kurt.
Yeah.
But prior to that, there was something like 20 passes that happened, and the interchange, the fluid interchange, and I think there's a couple things to this. Of course, that was with Martin Odegaard, Jesus, Saka on the pitch. So of course you're going to be getting a little bit more fluidity when you start to add some of the starters. But I just felt like in general there was a lot of players that could hold up their heads high, and none more so than Kieran Tierney. We're going to have a section on Kieran Tierney because the amount of arguments that I've gotten into on the timeline, where I just feel as though that there's a massive aesthetic technical bias that's happening, because when you purely analyze what Kieran Tierney is doing on the pitch, and by the way, what he's done since December of last year, I think there's this thing where people have just been really pissed off at the fact that he's been unavailable towards crucial parts in back-to-back seasons, that they've now felt as though that they need to criticize a player, but they've gone overboard. They've gone to the point where they're now downgrading his qualities, and they're not necessarily evaluating him in the right manner. I mean, this idea that Kieran Tierney can't play inside is something that, I've really struggled with a lot of people. He did it towards the end of December. And by the way, when we were playing last year between December and February, before he got injured, he was one of our best players and one of our most consistent players. This isn't something new, and he's been learning the inside role for the better part of an entire year. So this idea that he can't do it is wrong for me. If you want to talk about the pros and cons between Zinchenko and Kieran Tierney, I'm happy to have a debate about we actually analyze what the differences are. But for example, Kieran Tierney offers us something in both boxes, and he is a more complete profile than Zinchenko, as much as people don't want to hear it. He's somebody that is better in the final third. We saw the ball striking. We saw the very crossing, even in that first half. Curran, he was receiving on the inside and slipping balls through. He was our most effective threat on the 100%. Inside, coming into midfield, and that can't be debated. And, it was just a very complete performance. He was so sharp on the ball. He was smart between the lines. And of course, you want to shout out Eddie being phenomenally strong just in general in contact. I think he had great movement across the line. He wasn't as clinical as we know that he can be, but his movement was phenomenal. And I think, Vieira absolutely deserves praise for kind of that performance. I think there's a lot of people that are looking at him with a Bruno-esque impact, but when you have a look at some of his numbers, it wasn't just that. He kept the continuity well. I think he drifted at moments in the game to really exert himself. He wasn't, absolutely in the control mind, but what he did really well was so vertical. He did excellent with third man runs, the amount of times that he had himself free in the box for shots, and we'll get into it. But, prior to his goals specifically, he had multiple opportunities where he was in the box, and that isn't just from him suddenly popping up in the area magically. Like, he's making excellent runs. And, we know that we do this, by the way. We've been coaching third man runs phenomenally for over a season now. But I thought he did excellent to get there. But then, of course, that special half space cross, that touch, by the way, like everything about the move for the assist to that goal, for the Rob Holding goal, is phenomenal. That first touch to kill it, then to shift and fire a very guided half space cross. We have zero people in our 11 that can produce that current. Like, it's the pace on that cross that makes it. I don't think people quite realize, even when you look at Bukayo Saka, by the way, who's done that ball in the past, even for Oba, like it's not a rotation we've never seen before, but the execution is a little bit. Bukayo isn't consistent to the same degree in those half space crossing. When he does it, it's a little bit back foot. He lifts it up and he puts it in the area. But with
it's a bit loopy.
Vieira, it's a bit loopy. Yeah. It's a little bit. It's like a golf chip, a little bit more. Vieira strikes through very clean, and that trajectile tells you. Yeah, it tells you exactly what you're going to do. So, like for me, Vieira did excellently. But just in general, if you looked at it, I was frustrated with moments of the second half because I felt like there were some players for me, namely Marquinhos, who didn't impose himself to the same degree that we know he can. He clearly was a little bit awed by the occasion.
I think he was a bit isolated as well. I think he was very isolated on that right wing.
I think even receiving, though, like for me, a big.
He had some loose touches for sure.
Yeah, there were some loose touches, but I just felt like he didn't take on the man like I know he can. He definitely played within himself. He was somebody, that I felt like was feeling the fact that it was his home debut. A lot of people forgot that, but it was his home debut. He was feeling it. He's a shy boy. And then I also think that Sambi Lokonga did fine, but he was too safe. I think when I was looking at it, he had something like 94% passing accuracy, and it just, for me, there were times that he should be imposing himself a lot more in these types of matches.
I just think that he doesn't like this role. He doesn't like this role, and he feels like he's too. He wants to make sure he doesn't mess up. Basically, I think
he's too fearful. He's fearful of losing the ball because he's done it in the past in such high-profile areas.
Both him and I think Holding and Holding mainly. I just think that I've literally, as you were talking, I just drawn it up, and it's just that there's a lot of times when we're in build up, you see the space wide, and whether it be Turner or in this case Holding, you have basically the block shifted to one side, to ball side, and you have that massive amount of space, and it would be every possession that we would see Martinelli. He was on offside once, I think he miscontrolled once, and then Holding just couldn't get the ball out again and again. And the entire first half, it was evident that he couldn't do it, and it just made us look a lot more slow on the when we did get the ball out from build up, because their build up is quite good in terms of especially playing out from the back, and their press is quite nice. But the thing is, their press was very ball compressed. It was very, very, very lopsided towards the ball, and the spaces that were left, even if you just lump it in front of him and don't let it go out of play, there was so much space down that left-hand side. I know, because that first half I was on that side. I was lower tier on that side. And the amount of space we had again and again, I urge anyone to go and watch it back. And if you watch Martinelli, the space he's in it's ridiculous.
But I think that's kind of the spaces that we're talking about. We normally hit players wide, right? It's very common when you actually look at it. If you were to break down the possession stats in terms of the thirds of the pitch, so the left-hand side of the pitch, the central area of the pitch, and then the right.
There's a lot more balance this year.
Yeah, what we've done very clearly is the left-hand side that everybody keeps remarking has such fluid rotations is our build-up side. I urge everybody to think about this. We definitely build up through that side, but we look to switch to the right very clearly, and we look to finish off the right. So that's kind of this mechanism that we've been doing for a while now. I mean, we did it with the FA Cup to great effect in terms of trying to isolate Aubameyang, but it's a non-negotiable fundamental about how we attack with the ball, just very generally. And I feel as though the spaces out wide was something that at least us getting out was something that we didn't make use of, because they packed the center, Bodø, very, very good. And, I think that what you've drawn up is really something very important. So I'm just going to tag on a little bit over here, because you've highlighted Martinelli, but, you could have absolutely highlighted Marquinhos as well.
I just used one example because it's the same.
Exactly. Yeah, the logic is the same. So when you do have such a high press that is aggressive, by the way, which is what Liverpool are going to do, right? And this is why I love this game, by the way, Kern. I know it's the B team, but what you're going to experience in terms of some of these facets of play is exactly what Liverpool are going to do. They're going to shut off the center, and there's going to be space out wide. And we saw it last game at home when Aaron Ramsdale would just spam the cross to Martinelli. How many times he had that wicked touch that set everybody alight last time? I think we lacked that technical accomplished ability, right? And I was fearful because I saw that Rob Holding was definitely in the match, of course. And for me, I wanted Tommy Asu kind of more at the back, because I feel as though Tommy at the right back space, he's somebody that I think thinks a little bit conservatively as well, especially in build up. But when you see him, for example, at left back, the amount of switches that we saw from him in the second half with his left foot, by the way, which is something that he can do, but I just don't think he's as willing to do that. If you noticed, he was much more willing to go long in the second half when he knew that Bukayo was there. And I do think that plays into the role a little bit, because the players that were in charge of progressing us up the pitch in that first phase were players like Rob Holding. They were players like Sambi, by the way, who was receiving kind of back to goal and just receiving and playing it in the same spaces. So I'm just going to guide everyone's attention. Of course, the guy with the soccer ball down there, but, you'll have to think Sambi, who was, somebody between maybe, let's say, the 9 and a 3, he would drop in between, that kind of half space and try to present himself as an option. But instead of progressing forward on the half turn, he may recycle it out to the right or to the left, wherever the space was, and he just never turned. So we weren't getting anywhere with that progression. We were just keeping it. And so it was very difficult. And it wasn't until we found maybe Fabio Vieira between the lines, which wasn't quick enough, by the way, And I think that's where we struggled in releasing. And then finally, when we did get up the pitch, we had to recognize that that's where the space is. Let's hit them. And hit them in the channels long and high, because this back three basically congests the center, right? So you have to let your wide players to really be the receivers in this kind of build-up situation. So look, that's kind of the struggle that we face. But I do think in the first half, it was a little bit less than the second. I do think that you saw a little bit more of this second half. But, of course, Curran, you kind of mentioned this, and, we didn't really get Eddie and Geddy there. It was Rob Holding chucking in with that. But, I mean, the logic in terms of those quick half-space crosses was where the space was going to be, and we saw it. So happy days. But here, we've talked about 15 minutes. We've talked a little bit about the tactics. Let's get into kind of the lineups in terms of, is there any surprises for you? Like, I think the big one was potentially for me, Reece Nelson, just by virtue of how much he was talked about in press conferences and prior. It makes sense from a medical perspective. That's the first thing that I'm going to tell everybody. He's come off a 3-month-long injury to the quadriceps, which is a huge muscle. It's very prone to re-injury, by the way, similar to the hamstring. So you do want to be careful in terms of when you reintroduce somebody. But I just felt like he could have given us a little bit more minutes, and maybe they were just being very cautious. And we'll talk about his cameo another time, but I was surprised to see Martinelli start again. I wasn't surprised to see Xhaka. He's indestructible. He's somebody that I think, even if we don't really have a replacement,
I would like to. Exactly, this is the thing. We do have a replacement. We do have a replacement with a 6, and
that's
the 6 is we should be. If we had El Neni, the 6 would be El Neni, and the left centre mid would be Lokonga. But we've had this obviously injury to him, and we've had to play him in this 6 role that he's not really too comfortable with. And in terms of being moved on for Locatelli and Mida are bullshit anyway. Like, if you're trusting Kelsey and Mercato, I don't know what to say to you, because I don't really know. They've never really been decent with us. They've never had any information for us, and it's the middle of October. So I don't really see any reason to move on Lokonga, and I think he's not even being played in position. So if in that case, I don't really see the point. I think he had a very up and down game, as I mentioned before, in terms of vacating the central areas. He was meant to be blocking, and they had a couple of runs through the middle in that second half. But what did you make of the midfield dynamics and the especially Lokonga and Xhaka?
I just think that, Granit was still moving how he's normally moved, and there is a lot of onus on our 6 to progress play. Like, it is. He's the first receiver quite normally, and of course you also don't have William Saliba's presence in dribbling out from the back to be able to open up things, and you don't have Ben White, who, again, once you saw him come on, by the way, he just really orchestrated a really nice vertical run, and he's able to do those things. So for me, it comes down a little bit more towards lacking our progressors in the first phase to be able to get us out there, because Sambi, like we said, is a little bit too conservative in this role, and he's had a couple high profile mistakes that I don't think that he's operating with the same freedom. And that is something that he did talk about kind of in preseason when we look at Sambi. Just to answer kind of Raul's questions here, no, I think in terms of Sambi being moved on, I think a lot of that depends primarily for me, if you're really dreaming about Champions League football and you're looking at an AC Milan deal with Rafael Leao. Like, when you have people on the market such as Yuri Tielemans who are free, you could probably replace him with the same quality on the bench that you're going to get from Sambi, especially when you start looking at kind of the prospects that we have at 8 that are coming up. So when you look at Xhaka, who definitely seems to be staying, by the way, you've got Charlie Patino at left center mid, you've got Miles Lewis-Skelly, who is another wonder kid in the same age group as Ethan Nwaneri, who again would operate on the right as an 8. You've also got Martin Odegaard, who we saw a glimpse of in the left center mid space, which means that, that's definitely something that we're going to be looking towards. It's something I predicted here on BoP that we looked at. Odegaard would move to the left just by nature of having Emile Smith-Rowe, Fabio Vieira, and now Ethan Nwaneri there. So, like, we do have a clog in prospects of the number 8s. And, I think with Sambi, I've always been very adamant about what his faults were and what he was. Here on BoP, we told you the minute he was signed, he was never going to be a 6, in our opinion. And the reasons we kept saying was that he has an inability to understand his positional awareness, one, but secondly, the more important part is he can't track runners. And it's something that is very vital for a number 6 to be able to do. I don't find that he scans enough in that first phase. And when he does receive back to goal from the goalkeeper or from the center backs. He is unable to take that on the half turn confidently and face play. Like, that is a vital part of being a number 6 that you have to have. And at this age, he should have shown that ability if you were going to be able to see that. Now, another one, and the famous one, is he just lacks intensity running back to goal. And it's why you see those gaps, whether you look at, Manchester United in that game. He just continues to show those things. And look, he has other qualities. Again, like Sambi Lokonga's biggest quality for me is absolutely recognizing the space to attempt to pass. And what I mean by that is I don't think that he's got the greatest pace of pass ironed out quite yet, but he's very, very good in understanding where the gaps are in a back line. And he's
being an 8.
And so it has to be as an 8. It has to be somebody that is facing play, not receiving back to goal. He can't do that. He has to face play and have that freedom. And that's why for me, he's always been an 8. Now, the question, just really lastly, so we can wrap this up, is as an 8, does he have the potential to be a starter or is a depth option? And for me, I just think that Charlie Patino has a much more complete ceiling and profile, that after Granit Xhaka, he is somebody that I would argue is more likely to be a starter. And so in the role of depth, do we have prospects that are more complete in that role, or can you get an asset for free where you can move Sambi on, who is a very good player in his own right? I just don't think he will ever be a top 6 side starter. He's never been that material for me. I think his ceiling is
which is why we've always, I mean, both of us, and I posted on Twitter today to mass hysteria. We need to spend more money in a 6. 6.
Yeah,
I'm more than happy to literally go just bring Balogun as an extra attacker, then get a 6 and maybe a right back. That would be fine with me. I wouldn't mind that at all. The issue for me is, and we'll go back to the game in a second because we need to go through the goals, but the issue for me is that the shallowest talent pool in world football right now is a lone 6. There's not really a massive.
I keep repeating it. It's my famous juju. I keep telling everybody, I know, it's the rarest profile in the game, and let alone somebody that you're going to get for a decade.
So I don't really see that. I don't see that, because the thing is, it's a profile that doesn't rely solely on athleticism, because as long as you have the awareness and the technical security to get out tight space and read play well, you can play that position.
His 3 biggest weaknesses are the 3 biggest strengths that an anchor, a DM, whatever synonym you want to have, must have. And it doesn't have to be through athleticism or only through technique, like you said, but those 3 things are things that aren't even on the ball considerations. Like, we're not even talking about his limits as a player. Like, those are 3 fundamentals in how you see in the game, really. If you only see the game with the play in front of you, you typically are an 8. If you only see the game on the half turn, or at the very least with back to goal, and you're able to play that way, there's a couple different ways that you can be used in that scenario. But if you can only see things that with the play in front of you, then it really limits your potential about what you could be, let alone your intensity running back. And 2, people laugh when I talk about a 5-yard burst, but you need to show willingness to be intense both ways. If you don't do that, you can't be a 6, because a 6 is responsible just by nature of defending space. You're going to have to do it. So if you're not a great tackler, you need to substitute that with an excellent intensity running to your marker. If you don't have excellent tackling ability.
I don't think that's an either or, though. I think you have to be able to cover space, and you have to be able to read play, and you have to be able to be technically secure and build up. That's not an either or. Those are non-negotiables. If you can't cover space, then you can't be a 6. You can't screen. How are you going to screen if without the ability to have?
And just to wrap this up, because we're going to do a thing. We should maybe do a topic. If everybody wants, you guys let us know in the comments. If you really want us to talk about it, we can maybe describe the profiles and the roles of what a 6, 8, or 10 in quotations needs to be. But this is exactly why my galaxy brain has always said I would love to see Ben White after. By the way, narcissism pat on the back, here at BoP, you heard that Ben White would be a right back with William Saliba in the starting 11. As a follow-up to that point, I've always said that Ben White has a very big possibility of potentially taking the Kimmich route, absolutely, and becoming a defensive anchor. And in fact, it's something that we could look to do to prolong his career as well at the top level. I think that's something that's very interesting. He's played for Leeds before. He has a lot of fundamentals to really go there.
We have so many utility profiles, though. We have so many utility profiles in the defense. Ben White, Tomiyasu, even Saliba can play right back as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of versatility in that back line.
A lot of versatility, a
profile-wise.
lot of flexibility, but as promised, we have to get back into the game. So, really quickly, Curran, any surprises on the lineup itself? I talked about my surprise with Nelson, but for
No,
you,
I
any
mean,
surprises?
look, I personally, I thought Nelson would get some minutes. I didn't know whether it'd be starting or I had him in my starting lineup. But given when you look back on it, given that it's his first game back, maybe a cameo was maybe the best route just to get him to get some minutes back on the carpet, get some minutes in his legs, and maybe we see him start maybe PSV, another cameo for Bodø Glimt, the away leg, and then maybe we see him for PSV, something along those lines. I'm more surprised about the back line. Obviously, Cedric wasn't fit enough. That's the only thing, because we were told that he was fit. So I had him starting. I thought that would be the way we go, because you need that coach on the pitch sort of mentality when you have the youth in that lineup. And I thought Cedric is such a tactical mind. Mikel's often mentioned it.
It's
maybe
more so for Marquinhos for me. Like when you think
this is what I was going to get onto. That's literally my next point. I was going to say, because you have such a youngster ahead of him, that maybe it would be better for him to have Cedric behind him just to coach him through the game a bit. You can see
his mother tongue.
Yeah, and the thing is with Marquinhos is you can see he has a lot of talent. He's just not sort of maturity wise. He's still sort of struggling to get into it. I think he's still. It's a new country for him. It's a new culture for him. I think he's still struggling to like adapt into it, and he's feeling the pressure a bit. But you can see the fundamentals are there. He's still got that ability to burst out of tight spaces. He's good on the ball. He's good with either foot, and he's got a decent strike on him. So I think there's definitely tools to be there. And I think when we talk about the future in terms of next season and hopefully being in the Champions League, he could be definitely an FA Cup, Carabao Cup player that we can see come in for Bukayo, because I know a lot of people are going, we need right wing backup, but in the first place in the Champions League, you wouldn't want to play a right wing backup in the first place. So you'd want someone for the Carabao and the FA Cup, and that's something that Marquinhos can do. So a bit disappointed, because I thought that maybe he'd adapt a bit quicker, but the way he has shown has been very, very good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, we'll get into the game. It's almost been half an hour. We need to. We don't want to keep this too long. So look, the first chance falls to Eddie Nketiah from an excellent solo effort and a solo drive himself in like the 4th minute. And he kind of pulls it out of nowhere. One really common thing that we saw with Eddie Nketiah was people bouncing off the boy. The guy is a tank. We saw that. But, it wasn't just that one kind of time. He did it quite regularly throughout the match, and they just couldn't live with his physicality, especially. So he was making excellent movements, kind of receiving deep and then carrying for what was 15, 20 yards plus. And, he does a really good shot, and it's just wide. It's a good effort. He isolates himself on that left half space, and he looks far post, and it's a great shot. And then kind of moving on, that's kind of at the 4th minute. And then, literally at the 8th minute later, we have another chance, which is the glaring one with Fabio Vieira after Kieran Tierney does an excellent, again, solo run inside. He does a clip ball inside, and they clear their lines really well. The ball falls out to Granit Xhaka, who slips in Kieran Tierney again. And Kieran kind of fires it inside. And after a very smart layoff, but unnecessarily by the Bodø defender, Fabio Vieira skies it, and he should be getting his head over the ball on that. I think it's tough because the layoff by Eddie Nketiah, it puts it into his chest. He wants that on the floor. He doesn't want that in his chest so close to him. But look, you got to be consistent. I think he's got to get his head over the ball on that, and his shot just clips the top of the bar. So it kind of. It's something that he did well to get his body over it as much as he could, because it comes to him so quickly off the chest. It's within a couple meters. But the half volley is good. He just got to get over it a little bit more. And then we'll move on to the goal. And this is when I will give it to Curran's very capable hands. So
so basically we get the ball, and it gets to Vieira, who basically turns and finds Marcelli in the center of the center circle, who goes on to carry the ball, and we're all shouting here, look up, look at Tierney, look at that left side, it's all open, you got to look up. He eventually does, and we get the pass off to Kieran on the outside there. and then Kieran advances, takes a shot. It ricochets off the post. Look at this sprawling dive there. And Eddie is perfectly positioned. But what I want to focus on here is look at Eddie's positioning here. He's right. Look, he's not only in the center of the goal. He's also in space, so he can run onto it if he finds something else. His positioning here is very good. You can see here we've got 3 men in the box, including Kieran, obviously. But personally, I would like to have seen another third man runner just run into the box to see. But obviously, Eddie gets on the end of it, and this finish is so underrated. So underrated. I don't think people are talking about it enough. To have the composure at that speed to keep that ball on the floor and get it into the back of the net is very, very good. And that was the first goal. What should you make of it?
Yeah, look for me, fundamentally, there's 2 things that people didn't notice. Fabio Vieira, and his impact on that. By the way, he receives deep in between the lines, and he does the hockey pass, the so-called Martin Odegaard assist, where he frees Martinelli in, who takes it central, and he almost loses it. By the way, this was a tough start for Martinelli, like we were saying earlier on, and he definitely releases in space to Kieran, who, by the way, is arms outstretched, been calling for it for nearly 10 to 15 yards, and he finally receives it. But look, guys, this is all Kieran Tierney for me. I know you were talking about the follow-up, Curran, but that ball gets nowhere near the 18-yard box without Kieran Tierney's phenomenal ball striking. It was incredible. It's and this is something that, again, people don't like to comment, and I don't understand why, because he's done it for so long, but he has one of the best ball striking in the entire squad. Like, Kieran Tierney does this quite a bit, and I don't know if it's necessarily now. Kieran Tierney has always had phenomenal ball striking. Go back to his Benfica goal, go back to even his West Brom goal, go back to Celtic. He scored from nearly, half of half. This is a guy that has had phenomenal ball striking his entire career. He does it phenomenally well with his varied crossing. You see it, but it was struck with venom. It was struck through the ball excellently, and I agree with you. I think Eddie is very underrated in the type of finish that he does there, because he wasn't as clinical in other areas of the game. But the ball's bouncing off the post, and he does very well to almost guide it around the player. There's an opportunity for that defender, if he's switched on, to really receive it. But I think that with him, he guides it home. And yeah, you were saying something, Kurt.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. Some technical issues. Basically, what I was saying is, it's keeping it on the floor. I think that's the bigger thing for me, because the ability just to hit that is fine, but the amount of times it would just sky in the air, and you get that big woo, and then everyone kind of goes, "Oh, well, he's missed it. What's he done there?" But kept on the floor, keeps it nice and nice, just on target. Just guide that on target it's very, very underrated. And I think Thierry was saying it in a podcast he just did. There's a real lack of understanding about how footballers make complicated techniques look very, very simple. Like, he was mentioning a diagonal ball, 80 yards, etc. People look at an NFL quarterback doing something like that, and it's like a highlight reel. A Virgil van Dijk does it, or a Saliba does it, and it's just another play because it looks so effortless. And this is one of those techniques, because to keep that ball on the floor he has to get over it, you have to time it right. Anyone who plays cricket would know, if you don't time it right, you edge it into the slips. It's quite easily done. You just ricochet off your body and get it into an area that you don't want it to go. The control on that finish was exceptional. And regarding the Tierney thing you were talking about, the ball striking, we've seen it at West Brom, we've seen it for Celtic, we've seen it for Scotland. He has exceptional ball striking, but this is the first time in a long time, I think, because we've overplayed him a lot. We've overplayed him. We've played him in every game, and he's just gone hell for leather every time, because that's who he is.
Current,
this is the first time I've seen him fit in a long time, 100% fit.
So what I have a problem with, is just talking about qualities. For example, you're going to hear this narrative quite a bit too. Oh my God, Kieran Tierney has learnt the inside role. No, like he's had this in his locker since last season when we first decided that fullbacks were going to come interior. Like we didn't just do this season. We had done this for quite a while, and he'd been coached in order to do this. Did he have some struggling breathing room issues in terms of a new
People
role
often
change?
bring up that Fulham game, but he
100%.
wasn't fit for that Fulham game.
He
I don't
was
think
not
he was
fit.
100%.
It was one of his first matches back from a major injury, a major knee injury. So I have no problem discussing the pros and cons to a guy, but again, I have no idea why this idea that he can't play inside has come from. We've been doing this since December.
He's played in a 3 before. He's played in a 3 at the back before. Like the ability that he's not someone that can't play. If you want to talk about more higher up, obviously it's a different role. But the thing is, to say that he can't receive inside, he can't turn in space, he can't receive in build up, etc. It's
Well,
nonsense.
let's say it how it is, right? Like what people mean to say is that Kieran Tierney has an unorthodox gait receiving, and he's a little rigid in his angles. That's what people say, and they prefer the aesthetic complement of Zinchenko, who on the half turn can pull balls out and release his angles far quicker than Kieran Tierney. That's what it is. But he does not have Kieran Tierney's ball striking. He doesn't have his very crossing, by the way. Kieran Tierney in this match a ton of times has, received on the inside. And how many times, Kieran, did he funnel it between the lines, not just wide, by the way, from the inside channel? He would switch it and release players through. Like it wasn't a one-off. And I just very much frustrates me because in the final third, I don't think it's a debate. For me, Kieran Tierney is more complete. If we're talking about a different game state, if you want to break down a low block and you're asking for your fullback to operate more in central midfield and doesn't do those wide overlaps as much, which, by the way, Zinchenko hasn't been wide often. It's not something that we've seen, really. There was that famous quote that, Martinelli was talking about.
Jesus has been far wide more than Zinchenko has.
Yeah, and then when you look at it, like absolutely, Kieran Tierney is markedly a much better defender. It's facts. I did a post online.
I mean,
it's very clear.
Let's be accurate, though. Let's be accurate. Kieran Tierney is much better over short distances to get back in transition. That is the main thing. He obviously has a better tackling technique. He obviously has a better
1v1 defender in space.
A better 1v1 defender. Like these are basic, just nominal opinions that you can quite easily see. But for me, like I think a lot of people are interested because we play this double inverted fullback role that obviously Kieran can't be that technically secure. It doesn't make any sense when he's he's played in both inside out and outside positions, and his angles receiving the ball, he funnels it onto his strong foot very well. It's not like he's just someone who can't do that well.
The thing is, Curran, like I made a post, I don't know if you saw it too, but like we have been targeted on the left-hand side. It's a zone of the pitch that opponents have targeted, okay? And they have had more control over Arsenal in that area of the pitch. And that is not down to, Zinchenko being an amazing 1v1 defender. He has other pros. Like I'm not here to slam the boy, but, if you need to speak honestly about what fullback you may prefer. And with Kieran Tierney fit, he was absolutely subbed off. By the way, the reason we're having a Kieran Tierney segment is because I think Mikel has made the choice that Kieran is going to start for Liverpool, and as he should, by the way. This for me wasn't a fitness sub. He very much was in stride. He was the man of the match, by the way, as far as I'm concerned. For 70 minutes, he was the best player on the pitch. And when he did get subbed, he got subbed last time with Zurich. That was absolutely a fitness sub. This one, he had zero fitness concerns. So I think for me, that was him saving him for Liverpool, which we get into Liverpool preview territory, but enough eulogy about Kieran.
Just last thing about Kieran, and then we'll move on to the second goal. A lot has been made up about Gabriel this year, about he's made too many mistakes, etc., etc. We can't depend on him. He's not that. When you have a left back that isn't able to run back in transition, it makes your centre back, who's already quite aggressive
Curran, just to add to, I know where you're going with this, combined with a left central midfielder who is attacking the centre backs, by the way, as well.
Yes.
It's very important. There's huge spaces there for him to cover.
So this is the thing. When you have Xhaka basically operating almost as like a central attacking midfielder, a 10 at times, or a second striker role, when you have that combined with a left back that has struggled in transition to get back in the same way, your already aggressive centre back who wants to be aggressive and assertive in his duels, especially if it's an aerial duel. If that's what the situation you're leaving him, you're literally playing into your own weaknesses. You have a weakness there not in terms of Gabriel being a bad defender, but you're setting up a situation where everything is combined to form an opportunity for transition from the opposition attacking side. It's quite clear, and as long as we have both Gabriel and Zinchenko there, if you're going to play Zinchenko as in sort of like this low block sort of breaker, I would honestly rather you play Tommy at left centre back. Like, I honestly would, because that way you have a better transition defender instead of having Gabriel, who will be...
It's a shout. It's somebody who has opened up the angles. You get what you get there. He's an aerially dominant player, and is better in shorter distances as well, meeting out wide. Like, we know that. It gives you at least another person that's a little bit more...
I mean, I've been thinking about this for a while, but I just wanted to thought that, because we do need to get on the second goal, but this is something I did want to bring up to you.
We do. And look, at the end of the day, Gabriel has absolutely had moments where you actually look at it and you see, okay, look, he should be doing better in certain situations. And that's also something that you admit. You hold your hands up, no problem. But when you look at it, it's also a boy that has got into football very late. He joined Avivi at the age of 18, only had 2 years with Lille before he came to us. So football education-wise, he is a complete novice. Okay, he hasn't had the experience or the football academy, and it's why his gait is so unorthodox. It's what the coaches have been working on for so long. Gabriel, when he has space and time, he is excellent between the lines. We've seen him feed Martinelli. He is very, very good. In fact, there's many times where he takes onus stepping into midfield to really advance the play for us. He's obviously excellent aerially and defensively. He is just a dominant, aggressive defender. He has a very important role in that back line, but I don't think that many people have credited the space that he has to defend with in his territory. I mean, Gabriel is defending massive amounts of space. And, when you have a look at it, on Gabriel, it just frustrates me because there's zero context put in terms of his football background, but as well into the fact that we have Xhaka, who's so high up the pitch. We have Zinchenko, who, by the way, you even saw it for the goal against Spurs. He doesn't run back, and he's defending massive amounts of space, and so he deserves his.
And he's high up as well. He's high up. He's not like he's back. He's sometimes, a lot of the time, Saliba's the deeper centre back. Like, he's high. He's looking to be aggressive. He's looking to win his duel and then recycle possession. Like, he's looking to be his end. And this is what we tell you guys. We try to tell you, look, you can't look at things in isolation, especially in defending, because defense situations are a unit. You can't just look at it in isolation defending, because someone makes a mistake, but why were they in that position to begin with?
It's always
a chain reaction.
It's always multifactorial. And Grant Xhaka talked about it in All or Nothing when he had to put up his foot to catch out Jota, and he was remarking basically how the mistake happened higher up the pitch. And I couldn't agree more that it's multifactorial. But look, that's the defense of the boys in the Arsenal community that are being hated on. But look,
right, let's go to the second goal.
Let's get on. But just before the second goal, sorry, Kern, really quickly, Fabio Vieira has an excellent chance, by the way, and this is what I was talking about before in that first half, Kern. I don't know about you, but we dominated, and right after the goal, there was a couple minutes afterwards where there was an excellent pressing scheme. By the way, Marquinhos, who wasn't really good on the ball, was really good tactically in the press
off the ball,
and you could just see why we have an upgrade in that backup department. But between him and Eddie and Kedia, they force an error out wide, which we were doing quite a bit last game. And then Fabio Vieira pounces on the loose ball. He has a really poor second touch. His first touch to lead him into the box is really good, but then he has a really poor second touch where him and Kedia are basically standing on each other's toes. And I think he just digs out a shot that is a little bit tame. He's got to keep that a little bit closer to the vest and then have a great shot, which we know that he has. Excellent ball striking, both feet, by the way. He really does. But he was just edging. I think he was rushing his actions himself, by the way, Fabio Vieira, whether it was the previous chance on the crossbar, but also this one. And then, Curran, now I can let you do it, because a couple minutes after that Fabio Vieira chance that happens, within a couple minutes of each other, we really blitzed them in the 10 minutes between the first goal. We find our second goal where Fabio Vieira has a corner, and I will give it to you. Curran, go ahead. Describe this.
Perfect. So Fabio has a shot. I didn't take that shot because it's a 1v1.
It's just off the corner.
It's off the corner. So basically the corner goes in. Fabio puts the corner and Bodø clear. So it's not very clear, but you can see the Bodø defenders go up and it clear. And what I really want to emphasize is Vieira taking it down, because Vieira literally just plucks out the sky, takes it down, and it's dead. Takes another touch, and the cross goes in. And if you look at the position of the cross, it's literally this, but
ridiculous.
almost like
It's world class
like
play, is what it is.
it's world class. And what happens is what we've been telling you guys. Look at the space on the back post. Look at the runners in behind. You see Gabriel at the edge of the box making that run because there's space out there to attack. And if you look behind their defenders, we've got 3 men. So if you look at their block here, so if you start from the near side, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row, that back line. But behind those 5, we have 3 players. And that's because we want to expose that back post, get the cross in and tap it in. And what happens is bloody Rob Holding. Rob Holding gets a goal. He gets his head on it. Good goal, good contact. And yeah, goes in the back of the net. So yeah, a very good goal, very well worked goal. A goal that I literally, before 5 minutes before the Glimt preview, I put up on a tactical board because I thought it would come off, and it did come off. So yeah, very good goal. Just before George talks about it, we'll talk about what happens from this, and this is what we keep talking about, guys. Talking about very high, repeatable patterns of play that could produce high XG chances. That's what you want. You want things that can be done game after game. And what is the most deadly production of chances in modern day football is half space crossing. So
my favorite player, Rob Balding, coming in with a great goal. But like, no, look, it's an excellent header. It's actually a great header.
He can make good contact.
I think, look, make no mistake, it is all about Fabio Vieira. The way that he plucks that out of the air is world class, by the way. He kills it with one touch. He does a quick scissor and then shift out, and that cross is phenomenal. We were talking a little bit about it pre-stream and also on stream, but it's very different to that Bukayo Saka cross that is a little bit more lofted. It's a little bit chipped more, kind of in that golf chip, and it floats a little bit more. This one is directed. It's clear. It tells Rob Holding what he needs to do immediately without really having to think about it. And then
I put that in the back of the net. Jesus Christ! Like anyone,
it's gorgeous.
It's mental.
It was for
flat.
me. It was the on an individual level, it was the best piece of play that I saw throughout the game. I think we had an excellent passage of play with that really poor Eddie finish in the second half as a team, but like this was world class, and it was nothing more that Fabio Vieira deserved. By the way, he finally got his assist after teasing the goal, and he got his goal later on. But look, beyond that, we'll talk about the next couple chances, because then once again, Gabriel, by the way, receives it deep in his half, and he slips in a really nice between-the-line pass to Eddie Nketiah. And after some pinball, we get a nice free kick. And I think Granit Xhaka does an excellent job getting it on target. The Bodø goalkeeper does really well, by the way, to keep that out, because that is going in. It is goal-bound. And then we kind of end the half with like another couple flurries in terms of a corner kick routine that, Fabio Vieira sends in. We don't really get too close. And then we kind of approach really the second half. And I'm going to go to you, Curran. Firstly, second half is where we struggled fundamentally. I think that Bodø had a little bit more compact between the lines. And when you're looking at it, I really think that the big message that they had was to be a little bit more intense in their actions, because you could really see that come in.
Not just that, for you, they reduced the spaces in their central zones. They really compressed themselves centrally, and they thought, okay, if we can't get down the sides, because our press was quite basically ball orientated, but also didn't allow for spaces to emerge down the side. So, for example, when they go to their right centre back, Marquinhos jumps, and Eddie comes to block off the basically the passing lane to the other centre back, and it's very good. Basically ball side, and Vieira goes to the defensive midfielder. So what they decided to do is they decided to basically pack the middle and advance the ball through the center, and they tried to avoid passing and go into more carrying actions. They tried to basically turn into space because we press so high, turn into space and run at us. And that was what was causing us problems, because they had the technical security in build up to just basically turn us and run. And they did that very well. I think we also were a bit lax in our duels that second half, especially to begin with. I think we were definitely a a bit lackadaisical. I thought we were just sort
They
of
were
like,
really
we'll get
aggressive. Like, they were
yeah,
really
they were
aggressive
really
for our
aggressive,
wingers.
but they were aggressive to
Especially.
running. They were
Well,
aggressive running. That's
well,
what
and even fouling, they really took like the Everton approach. Like I think, look, immediately after the first 5 minutes, we had an excellent, by the way, an excellent kind of first chance. Really, Martinelli does phenomenally well on the wing, by the way, to release Granit Xhaka, who has a weak foot shot that is actually really, really good. And so when you do have a look on it, I thought, look, we're going to start the half exactly how we ended the half. We were completely in control, and then afterwards, you can kind of see Martinelli gets clattered like in the 50th minute. It's a strong yellow card, but I just think it speaks to kind of their increased intensity between the thirds, and they really stopped us from being able to become cohesive. And you could tell, I don't know, you were at the game, Corinne, but for me, Mikel was furious in terms of the intensity. Like after they started hitting us and they added a little bit, Bodo had
I could feel the anger. I was on the other side. I could feel it. I could feel it radiating. I had just finished my prime. It was not a good time.
We stepped off, right? Like they were so aggressive. They were hitting us really hard, and they stopped us from basically playing our game. I would argue from the 50th to the 70th minute ish before we started seeing subs. Bodo were on top, and they basically were just very aggressive. And I think Sambi had a period where he was struggling to get himself in the game after that, because I think he was just facing quite a bit of pressure from Bodo. But it really came down to them aggressively pressing our wingers. For me, very specifically, if you look at it, it wasn't just Martinelli, but even Fabio Vieira, when he tried to drop, there was a Bodo player consistently on them, and they went a little bit more man-to-man. I know that Knutson kind of talked about in the press conference that their press is a little bit more zonal, but it was very clear in the second half he changed it. He went a little bit more man-to-man, and he said, listen, let's go. We need to be a little bit more aggressive to meet Arsenal here because you're letting them play, and we were killing them, and it worked. And I think that was the biggest change that I saw tactically from the two managers, and why Bodo kind of got a return foot back onto it. So, look, I agree. Knutson is a very smart manager. I talked about it online. He kind of not destroyed, but he really outlined what Arsenal do very well in his press conference. He gave a little tactical preview about it. And it was definitely somebody I was very, very impressed with. But going on in terms of, the next highlight points of it, I think Bodo were doing well to release their right winger, who was having an excellent game on his own. I just wanted to shout out Mavuka. I think that's his name. I'm butchering it. But the Bodo right winger did excellent. And it led to a very dangerous shot on goal, Curran, in like the 56th minute, where Matt Turner makes a phenomenal save. Somebody that I felt had a very sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit game in distribution.
No, he pissed me off, man. He
was definitely somebody that frustrated, I think, throughout the match. But that Turner save is phenomenal. It's through bodies, it's low and hard, and he deserves his praise because that keeps us in the match. I do think that Bodo were on top at that point, and getting 2-1 down makes it nervy because they had the wind in their sail. So that was a really important save by Matt Turner, and I hope he gets confidence.
This was the most stereotypical Matt Turner performance, though. This is what I expect from him. It's really good at shot stopping. He
it's through two players. Both Gabriel and Rob Holding attempt to intercept the ball, and it goes through. I
just feel like he was just so. He tried to get it to the wings. He tried, and I respect that. But the amount of times, I don't know if it was a bit of Marquinhos miscontrolling times. Sometimes he wasn't reading it right, and Turner overhitting the ball into touch. I think it was a bit frustrating to watch at times, and I think that as long as he keeps it short, and he does, and you can see that that Inaki is trying to work on him on those clip balls, because he really tried going to wing on both sides quite a bit. I think he tried to open up and go to the right a bit more, but he really is trying to get that ball down. I'm hoping it will come maybe within like 6 to 9 months, something like that. We'll see it. Like maybe it improves a little bit, maybe gets more consistency in it, a bit more confidence. But it was a bit underwhelming. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, it was tough because I think the really fundamentally the switches, the subs that we did, they all came in kind of response to this increased aggression from Bodo. And in terms of the substitutions, like I'm gonna have a talk with it, because again, people keep losing their mind about this load thing for fitness. And no, like what needed to happen is that Bodo were having an increased amount of intensity, and what Mikel wanted was absolutely a switch. And when you've got two players, by the way, in Granit Xhaka and Martinelli, who had played previously, they they were the first two subs that you have to make regardless. You're not keeping them on the pitch longer than they need.
He timed it well.
And so how do you do it? He timed it very well. They came off in the 58th minute. I don't know what people are losing their mind at. And in order to do that, you cannot replace those two without experience. And so very naturally, I'm going to say it again, Gabriel Jesus, as well as, Martin Odegaard are the natural replacements for those positions. And then when you look at it, we talked about it before, Marquinhos, look, you give him his due because it was a home debut, but he was the worst player on the pitch at that point. And so fundamentally, that was the next best replacement, and you have to replace him with Bukayo Saka. So when you're starting to look at it, the subs were done correctly. And then when he did sub off Kieran Tierney in the 72nd minute, that was, again, a like-for-like switch where we had Tommy throw out on the other side, and he was saving Kieran Tierney for Liverpool. That was very, very clear. So for me, I think people are far too concerned with load, and it's illogical. Okay, a lot of people needed the fitness and the rhythm pre-Liverpool, but we were facing a Bodø team that was giving us an exact dry run of what Liverpool are going to attempt to do. So it makes sense to put on your starters to be able to experience that kind of tight, high press and aggression that they're going to be doing. But also, when you had to look at it, I think we struggled with the amount of changes. When you do introduce somebody, absolutely, like it was definitely a sign that, Mikel, we were talking about it before, he was not happy. We lost control of the game because they weren't aggressive in the middle of the park. I do think with 4 changes, it took us about 10 to 15 minutes to really get accustomed to that raft of changes. When you make so many on a game state, it takes a little bit of time. And so I don't think we really improved until Ben White came on for Kieran Tierney, and we shunted Tomiyasu back out to left back, where we really saw him do some phenomenal raking balls with his left foot. And that is when we kind of reasserted our control on the match. And it takes us to that Eddie chance. That last 10 to 15 minutes became, smooth again, absolutely. And it was because of the raft of changes that we got. So the big thing that I was going to ask is I'll maybe ask you this question really quickly, Curran, before we get into the Eddie chance. But what did you think of the opposition goalkeeper, Bodø, in terms of his distribution and just in general? I thought not just that way, but his shot stopping was great.
It was great, yeah. But the thing is, what impressed me the most was because Eddie loves the press. Eddie loves going, especially for a goalkeeper. He loves going and just quietly pops it off. You don't have to have the 60-yard Edison balls. Just get it out, get it to your centre back, get it out. Make sure you don't get caught in possession. Make sure you don't make it harder for your centre backs. And what he was doing, which I noticed quite well, I didn't notice because the thing is, I don't really watch them. But in about 35, 40 minutes, and you realise that he's passing it to the centre back strong foot pretty much every time. That he's doing. He's not just passing it to, and it sort of takes a touch, and then they can go take a touch, get it onto the strong foot, and they can pass it forward. He's passing it onto their strong foot most, if not all, the time. Which is what you want from a goalkeeper, that sort of accuracy to make sure that you can actually get the ball out of your feet and make sure the centre back doesn't have to get it out of their feet. They can quickly just turn, move in, and pass it because you need that speed, especially in build up. So yeah, it was decent. Before we do move on to the third goal, there's one thing I want to say is we talked about it before when we talked about Lokonga. We need to get better at running games in the second half a bit. At times we've improved on it this season, but there's a lot of times where sometimes even the first team, that period after the first goal for Spurs, even though they didn't really have anything much, and they couldn't really they couldn't really get their feet in order to produce chances or produce any opportunities. There's a lack of sort of being able to keep a level and sort of see games out till it's out of sight. And I just want it just to be a bit more tighter, That because the thing is, what people keep saying is when we reached our potential, this is as good as it can get. We can go up 3, 4, 5 levels from this. This is a very, very young team, and sometimes it shows. So.
Well, here, look, I'm going to really quickly transition to the Eddie Nketiah chance before we talk about that big goal and we wrap up, because this was a case of Sambi actually being very forward-thinking, and he receives really deep in his half, and he finally makes a half-turn where he stretches out the pitch, and he makes a really smart pass out to Ben White out wide, who then plays it into Saka, and Saka makes a genius clipped ball into Martin Odegaard, who then just sees Eddie very early, sees him make the run, and look, Eddie has to do better. You were at the ground yelling his pieces. When he's through it on goal, he's got to do better at that.
He's got to do better, because the thing is, like I was saying to you earlier,
the movement is what I want to highlight first, because he makes that classic banana run where he starts wide, gets in between the center backs, and Martin, again, to his credit, who had a really good cameo, by the way, he releases quickly. I know, hear it again, Martin Odegaard praise, but he releases it very quickly, and Eddie's in on goal. And I don't want to spend too much time hammering, I'll be honest, because he had such a good game elsewhere. We know he has to do better. We know he can do better. He just gets the technique all wrong. His head is back, and he lifts it high and wide. And we know that he's got to get his head over the ball across the face of goal in those situations. But after that, let's get to the third goal, because we make a quick sub, and Reece Nelson with a phenomenal cameo, by the way, very sharp. But go ahead for the third goal so that George gets his prediction right. So describe it in all its glory.
This actually pissed me off more than because it was so good that I couldn't even be angry at it.
World class play, isn't it?
It was just like he receives here, beats one man, beats a second man, and then you see where Fabio is. Like he's in space here, and he's got all the time and space in the world once Jesus puts it across, and just smacks it into the top of the net. And another thing is, there's a lot of people here would try and place it bottom corner. Fabio just smacks it. This hit just reeks of confidence and just sort of supreme ability just to really know that
no more than
I'm just going to get it in.
It's no more than he deserved. He got his assist, but there was 3 times that we've highlighted, by the way. There were Fabio Vieira should have scored earlier in the match, and he finally gets his goal. But look, I have to put praise on Gabriel Jesus. This is all his goal. He is our best short control dribbler in the squad. He is somebody that, for me, which is why I warned everybody, look, there's going to be times where he plays left wing. Shock horror, it happens here. In fact, this second half, partly of it was a time that Mikel used for experimentation. I don't know if everybody saw it. Martin Odegaard played primarily as a left central midfielder. He played his same role where there was times where he picked up spaces in the center circle as an anchor. We saw him really experiment with his 11 in this match, and it was excellent. I mean, you're 2-0 up, like why not experiment? And Gabriel Jesus for me is world class at his tight control dribbling. The only person to rival him is Emile Smith-Rowe, obviously somebody that's injured right now that is out, but Gabriel Jesus just showed why he has a quick shift, and the way that he's able to dribble inside the box is just so potent, and he puts it on a plate for Fabio Vieira. He does his job right. He, unlike Eddie, keeps his head down, but it's close. He hits the roof of the net. But look, it caps off a game, and we're going to wrap it up here. But Curran, for you, I was so surprised when you came back frustrated, because I don't know, on rewatch we killed them. There were so many people.
Yeah, I think
frustrating maybe not to get a full 90 minutes. I get that, but on the whole, it was a murdering. I think tell me the XG again, but it was something like
it was 3-1.
3-1. And I think you're frustrated to give up the 1 XG in terms of that 20-minute spell between the 50th minute and the 70th minute when we lost control. I get that, but on the whole, with all the changes that we made 3-0, what's not to love? I mean, George is right. What's even more not to love?
First is that, before anything else, But on a serious note, I just think the lack of technical security to get out to break lines, I think, was so frustrating. I think just from being there, seeing it live, because I was literally on the center line, so Marcelli was literally right in front of me, and I could see the amount of space he had. The one time he got offside, I think another time they hit it over his head. I think there was another time where it just was too far in front of him, and he didn't really get a chance. And I think he fumbled it once. There was a couple of times when you're just sitting here, and the thing is, the same thing happened as you mentioned before when we were talking about it. The same thing happened for Marquinhos. The block would be shifted left. Marquinhos would have an acre of space. I urge any of you, if you have the time, go and watch the first half, and you'll see again and again, block pushed, space, just a Ben White, a Saliba.
That's such a sharp cameo too.
You know what I mean? These guys find these passes. How many times last season did we have Ben White to Marcelli be an outball that we just depended on? Ramsdale obviously would have made that ball. I just felt like it wasn't good enough, and I don't think that was the thing. And in terms of duels, I think Mikel mentioned it as well. We weren't aggressive enough in the duels, especially in the second half, early doors. I think we could have really put them to bed. And I just think we struggled to control, especially we had people vacating central areas, and that's just not acceptable. You can't have a 4-2-4 press or a 4-4-2 press and the two be high up, and you leave a central area.
Yeah, it was the manner how we lost control, and that's how I can understand from Mikel's perspective, and even yours. You know how those 20 minutes we did lose control just by
I'm happy with a 3-0, but like it was one of the most frustrating 3-0s I've seen in a long time because it should have been 5 or 6.
Yeah, like you're looking at a big table and you wanted to get, your prediction in there. But guys, hey, look, just a really quick reminder to everybody. These were the predictions, and boom, another one. That's 2 in a row for everybody in the comments, by the way. Mystic George comes again, and look, it's just beautiful reading at the top of the table.
Oh God,
just 3 correct.
Notice, Chris has made this, and he's put me on the bottom of purpose. We're at the same points, Chris. We're at the same points. I'm gonna find you.
It's alphabetical order, Corinne. Nothing more. It's just alphabetical order.
Stupid.
But look, the reading is beautiful at the top of the table here. Mystic George back at it again with 2 results back to back. But look, guys, that was a good game. I just wanted to end it on a Reese Nelson cameo that I thought was really, really sharp. Again, I mentioned it really quickly, but for me, he's a player who still has one of the quickest feet in the squad. Do I want to give up on him? No. I mean, Mikel kind of mentioned it quite a bit in his press conference. It's somebody that he could see turning it around. He believes he could, and there is a possibility of a contract extension on him. And that would be lovely jubbly to kind of rework an asset like that was declining. And, if he could offer something for us to rest Martinelli, that's going to be a really important player for us in the next couple weeks, because we have quite a few games. That's one of 9 now down the hatch, done. It's a win. It's a solid win. And we travel out to the Emirates again, ironically, but we host Liverpool. And guys, that's the big one. That's the preview that will come with you guys tomorrow. So again, I'm going to let everybody know. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. You hit that bell for notifications to know when, in fact, we do upload. In terms of media, you can find us over here at GeorgeV_AFC. Find Curran at Curran BoP. Of course, you can find Chris at CKFTBL. That's at CK Football. And then in terms of us, we're Ball Over Passion on YouTube and on Twitter at BOP Footy to follow us if you guys want to. So thank you so much. Make sure you guys comment in terms of what you guys felt on the game. But we are going to be back with you guys with a preview tomorrow. So keep your notifications on. It's going to be a big one. Liverpool, can we overturn the historical downfall that we had in recent years? I'm very confident we can. And if you want to talk about what kind of spaces we'll find, you let us know. So thank you so much. Join us tomorrow, and we will catch you guys for that preview tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody. Peace.
See you later.